Hey guys, I've partnered up with ASIO Esports to give away a mousepad and keyboard. All you have to do is like, comment, subscribe, and click on the link in the description to claim your entries. Best of luck, and now let's get into the video. What's going on, Nasteey Nation? It's Nasteey, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over 15 tips and tricks that can help win your solo queue games in the first 10 minutes. If you do go on to enjoy the video, then be sure to leave a like on the video. But without further ado, let's get into it. So the first tip that I'm going to offer that can help win your solo queue games in the first 10 minutes is asking for bans. So you just have to remember that the game actually starts as soon as you get into champion select. I know a lot of people don't pay too much attention to this time. More times than not, people will be watching a YouTube video or anything really that just distracts them from the game, and more times than not, people don't even pay attention until minions spawn. But believe me when I say paying attention all the way up to the time that you load onto the rift can be very, very valuable in putting you in the best situation possible to win your game. By asking your team for bans, you're just going to be starting everything off on a very good note by coordinating a very good list of bans, and that really can go a long way. You'd be surprised, but there's a lot of people who just don't pay too much attention to their bans. A lot of people just ban the first champion that comes to mind, or just ban something very troll. But if you do some research ahead of time, you can be knowledgeable of the best bans at the time and offer those as suggestions to your team. For example, right now, Graves, Irelia, and Akali are some of the strongest champions in the game, so every single champion select, I do my best to remind my team to try to ban those champions. And sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does, but it is, again, a good start for your game. At number 2, we have look up your teammates. So this is something that I learned from watching Panzer Dragon. For those of you guys who don't know, Panzer Dragon is a challenger jungle main. He has a YouTube channel himself, and he also streams. And while watching one of his streams, I realized that in every single champion select that he joined, he would always highlight all of his teammates' names and just post those into op.gg, and that would pop up a bunch of very helpful statistics with his teammates. That allowed him to just get a very early expectation for his teammates. And with that information, he would decide if that game was either playable, or if he should dodge, or if he were to go through with playing the game, which teammates he might play around. For example, if he saw somebody on his team that had 80 games on Pantheon but only won 28% of them, then he would probably dodge that game had that teammate picked Pantheon. And on the other hand, if he had a Katarina one trick that had an 80% win rate locked in on his team, then he'd probably play that game out and try to play around that Katarina, because that would be his win condition for that game. At number 3, we have get everyone on comfortable roles. So surprisingly, Riot doesn't actually do the best job of putting everybody on their roles all the time. Sometimes you'll just have a support main that is stuck on ADC and an ADC that is stuck on support, and not everybody communicates that all the time. All it really takes is asking a simple question such as, is everyone okay on their roles? And that could fix just about everything and put you in a better position to win your game. At number 4, we have utilize first pick. So I already talked a little bit about how important it is to ban OP picks, but if you do have the first pick option, then instead of banning all the OP picks, maybe you coordinate with your team to leave one of them open intentionally and pick them first to get that power pick on your team. This is something that is utilized a lot in competitive play. The first pick is a very important pick of every single champion select. In solo queue, not many people pay too much attention to it, but again, use that to your advantage, leave some good picks open, and secure that pick for your team. At number 5, we have find a proper pick. So what I mean by this is pick something that is good, something that fits the team, and something that you feel comfortable on. Those are the 3 things that you mainly want to be covering when you are picking your champion. So picking something that is good is just picking a strong champion at the moment. For example, if Fiddlesticks ADC happens to have an 80% win rate at the time for one reason or another, then maybe that's something you want to be picking. If that's not something that exists, like right now, Fiddlesticks ADC does not exist, then you don't want to be picking that. Picking something that fits the needs of the team is something like if your team has no tanks on your team whatsoever and you are the last pick as a jungler, then maybe picking something like Sejuani or Zac or any other kind of jungler to fit what your team lacks. And the last thing that I mentioned, which is pick something that you feel comfortable on, is very self-explanatory. Pick something that you have experience on. Don't first time a champion just because you heard some streamer talk about how OP that champion is. Play something that you feel comfortable on and something that you feel that you can carry the game on. At number 6, we have learn how to dodge. Again, there are 3 golden rules for this tip as well. The 3 times that I would recommend dodging in every single situation are: 1, if you have a team that is either full AD or full full AP. If you have a team comp like that, the enemy team can just stack the resistance that they need, whether that be magic resist or armor, and eventually outscale you and win the game. Very hard to win games like that, so I would recommend dodging then. Number 2 is if you're stuck in a toxic or troll lobby. For example, this is something that I have personally seen a lot. I'm not sure if any of you guys have, but a lot of times I'll get into a lobby and there's people that are arguing from a previous game that they played together, and I can tell right off the bat that they're just not going to be able to work well together. They're going to be too busy flaming each other, and so in those situations I will dodge. And the third reason for dodging is if you're stuck on a role that you aren't familiar with or a role that you don't feel like you can carry. Personally, I am a support main, but I also play a lot of mid lane and jungle, so if I get any of those 3 roles, I'm pretty comfortable. If I get ADC or top though, and I can't get any of my teammates to feel comfortable enough to swap roles with me, then that's a game I'm going to dodge, because if I don't feel comfortable carrying the game, if I don't think that that's possible, I definitely don't want to be relying on my teammates in a solo queue game. So just get out of there, dodge, wait your 5 minutes, take your 3 LP loss, and queue back up again. At number 7, we have look up the best runes and build. And the best way that I would recommend going about with doing this is using u.gg. u.gg is a fairly new site that helps you with all the helpful information that you could possibly need in Champion Select, including runes, builds, win rate, counter picks, and many more things. All you have to do is go to u.gg or click on the link in the description, go to the search bar, type in whatever champion that you're looking into. For example, here I'm looking into Rakan, and as soon as I click the enter bar, everything's going to pop up. Everything that I could possibly need to know about this champion is right there at my fingertips. And overall, it's just a very helpful site to use to help put yourself in the best situation. So I would highly recommend using u.gg and never lose Champion Select again. At number 8, we have identify your win conditions. So there's a lot of different win conditions that will vary from one team comp to another, so I can't dive into all of them and entirely discuss at which times you would choose which, but a few win conditions that are very common are split push comps, 1-3-1 comps, early game focused, late game focused, and team fight oriented comps. Try to do your best to decide which one of those fits your team composition and play according to that win condition. At number 9, we have decide on a playstyle. During the game, you are going to have to adapt quite frequently, but when it comes to an early game playstyle, that should be determined ahead of time. Don't make a mistake and then try to figure out what you did wrong. Have everything planned accordingly ahead of time. For example, are you a lane that should try your best to push in the enemy and roam to other lanes? Are you a lane that wins the 1v1 or 2v2 and thus you want to trade frequently? Or are you a lane that straight up loses the matchup so you want to focus on farming and just try to get out of the lane safely? Decide on a playstyle early and commit to it. At number 10, we have identify the first dragon. Your early game focus will be very different depending on the first dragon of the game, so identify it and vocalize it to your team how you should be playing accordingly. A very easy way to identify it is the first thing that you should do when you load into the Rift is just click on tab and spam which dragon is up first. I remember a couple years ago I was watching an LCS match with TSM and their bot lane was top lane for some reason, I don't remember exactly why, but there was an Infernal Dragon coming up, and instead of getting the tower that was really low that they were about to take down, instead they ran all the way to the Dragon Pit just so that they can be there in time. And the only reason they did this was because it was an Infernal Dragon, and that is wildly known as the most powerful dragon in the game. Had this been an Air Dragon or an Ocean Dragon, maybe they wouldn't have made that same decision. Maybe they would have just traded it for the top tower instead. But again, if you do identify the dragon early, you can play accordingly and make decisions that'll put your team in a better position to take those objectives. At number 11, we have consider the level 1 cheese, and this is a tactic that is specifically for bot lanes. If you are in a bot lane and you don't have to leash, then you do want to consider trying to cheese your enemy level 1. However, you only want to go with this if you do win the 2v2 at level 1. For example, if you are playing something like Braum Lucian, that would be a really good level 1 2v2. But if you're playing something like Jinx and Soraka and you don't have to leash, even then you don't want to be going for that matchup because you will lose that more times than not. At number 12, we have focus on going even or ahead. When it comes to solo queue, people have really weak mentalities, and the first few minutes, the first 10 minutes of the game or so, are often the most important just because people can give up so easily. Really, you just don't want to be the reason that your team falls behind early. Try to focus on going even or slightly ahead. Don't play overly aggressive though and set your team behind very early on, because again, the early stages of the game are often the most vital. At number 13, we have put a large focus on farm. So over the years, the amount of gold that minions give has changed quite a bit. so this probably isn't exact anymore, but what it used to be was about 20 to 30 CS was equivalent to the gold that is given from a kill. So sometimes just by getting a large gold lead on your enemy, you can get the advantage. You don't always have to go for kills in order to have that gold advantage on your enemy. So focus on farm and you can very easily win the game that way. At number 14, we have get a first back. Again, the early stages of the game are very important, and it is important to start the game off on a good note. And something as simple as getting a good first back will be very, very important. For example, if you're playing ADC and you aren't paying that much attention, you go back to base with 1200 gold, you won't be able to afford that BF power spike. Instead, you'll probably just have to settle for pickaxe and boots, in comparison to an ADC that is paying constant attention to their gold, makes the decision to stay for one more wave in order to reach that 1300 gold power spike for that BF sword, and when they return to lane, they will have that advantage. This goes for all lanes. Just be mindful of how much gold you have and try to get a really good first back, because a little difference can go a long way. And finally, the 15th tip that I have for winning your games before the 10-minute mark is make a smart second move. I've seen so many people start the game off on a good note. Maybe they get first blood or a few kills or first tower, but they don't know how to snowball the game from there. So however the game starts, whatever your first move is, try to continue the momentum, try to continue the tempo, and try to snowball the game from there. For example, if you are playing in the bot lane and you get the first tower, instead of going back bot, try to make a smart move to decide what's best next. If there's a good dragon up, maybe you want to stay down towards the bot side to secure that dragon. If there's no dragon available, maybe you want to go straight up to the top side. If your mid laner has a good split push, maybe you go mid instead and send your mid laner to the bot lane. There really is a million different options here, but just try to identify which one is best, and more than anything, just try to snowball the game from there, making a good second move. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that should just about wrap up the end of this video. I hope you were able to find this video helpful, and if you were, then be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Also be sure to check out my Twitter, Discord, and merchandise on your way out. Links to all of them will be down in the description. Anyways, that'll do for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.